Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us on the In Scope podcast. My name is John Scott. I'm one of the founders over at ScopeStack, where we solve all your scoping needs. Glad to have Brandon Meyer here with me, CEO of IMS here in town, plus a couple other states. But thanks for joining me, man.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, we usually don't have tall people here, so I feel like I should move my chair up for those. Anyway,
I could lower mine if that helps.
It's okay. Way. It's cool. But yeah, man, thanks for coming on. And, you and I have, we kind of hit it off like years ago when I was in there trying to get you to buy ScopeStack.
Yep.
And, you're like, oh yeah, I've had that problem. And, you introed me to like other, potential partners and things like that. And so like, you have a pretty good handle on, there are a lot of tools out there for MSPs, VARs, IT service providers. And like you've been one of those people, like you're not afraid to evaluate them.
I think that's,
right? That's
true.
And you have connections and you've given certain tools and people a shot. And really in an effort just to make your team better and make your process more efficient, right?
Yeah, no, that's actually spot on. I had a peer group I was in, they nicknamed me the tool guy. I'm not really positive that's a good thing.
Tim the Toolman Taylor.
Exactly. But it trying to find ways to improve the business. So you have to take a shot and they don't all work.
Yeah.
But there's been some good ones that have fallen through the cracks as we do that. And then you start to build relationships with the folks you try with, and then you get referrals from that, not just from business, but to other ways to be better.
It's a small world, right? Like it's a very small world.
Very small. And you think it's just like your city or wherever. It's, it's North America seems small now. You run into the same people everywhere and, same war stories.
I know. I have friends in Canada now. It's weird.
That's weird. Australia. That is weird. The Canadians are a little strange.
I love the Canadians.
I do too.
They're the best. Not the best. I'm going to alienate all of our users, but like, some of the best.
I agree. Longtime friends up there. They're very good people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so like, again, like you're out there, you're trying to, you're building your team, you're building your business, and y'all are growing. And so I want to pick your brain on like, and we can talk about the scoping process, but we can also just talk about other areas of inefficiency that you find.
Yeah.
Like, the way that we used to fix at organizations I worked at, like the scoping, kind of the pre-sales thing, is we just add more people to the team, and like those are expensive resources. That's an expensive decision to make, especially when there might be more cost-effective, efficient ways to solve that through like software and tooling. So like, where do you even start in that whole process of evaluating tools versus people?
Well, part of it is, I think every company's got their own type of point in time reasoning. If you're a small team, you got to scale a person. There's no other way other than to add some people. You can't, John, you can only do so much, right? So,
yes.
But luckily in my career, we've got to some points where you've got probably the right enough people, but their time becomes more valuable and it becomes inefficient because they're all trying to do the same thing. How do you bring that commonality where the core things like, we sell a service. What's in that service? What's the service level agreement say for that service? What's the description? And that doesn't need to be said 10 different ways by 10 different people. It needs to be said once and consistent, build a brand.
Like one voice, right? Like you want to present that IMS voice, not Tommy's voice and Billy's voice.
Yep.
No offense to Tommy and Billy, but...
And Tommy and Billy will sell the deal because the customer loves Tommy and Billy.
Yeah.
But we don't want Tommy and Billy saying different things for when Pete gets involved.
Well, that's actually a really good point because like if you can identify where that problem is, you start building standards around it or some process around it. Now, when you add people to the team, it's not like, oh, I have one more variable to consider when we're trying to train everyone. It's we already defined the way to do this. And now John coming into your team, right? Like, it's already there. It's already established. And so, interesting.
Part of that is, again, point in time, we got and started down the path like using ITIL. And that helps start define those standards you're talking about. And then you want groupthink around the standards. You want the individuality to feel connected to a customer, to make sure that they know that you have their back and their best interest, which is typically human relationship. But how do we build that out so it's the same? And then you recognize that you don't have the systems for everybody to pull the same information or, even in the case of like support, be able to get to that one piece of information that solves that problem that one person solved and it's now hidden in that person's head. How do you get that out? And so people go down documentation paths, and then people can't find documentation because they named it different. So again, then you got a new standard to worry about, and it's a complex over time, but you kind of have to start with the idea that you can't do it all.
Yeah. I mean, I felt that. I know, right? We were talking about this earlier, but like a pre-sales person is a very expensive decision, and so like there has to be some thought around the why you would hire another person. Like, what is the return going to be from that? Do you look at tools and platforms the same way? Like, what is the return? Like, do you measure it?
We do.
Okay.
We do. So in our world, good one we have going right now is around our help desk. And, that typically is a spot where you want to hire great individuals, but you're also probably hiring someone you want to train. Yeah. And so they're not coming in as the most seasoned person, but you want to grow them up in the organization and promote them. But how do you get them onboarded faster to help support customers? So, when you're evaluating that, we looked at, do we hire more people? Again, there's a volume of work that only people can knock out, right. But are there ways to make it more efficient through adding, document management systems tool? In some cases, exploring, artificial intelligence and stuff like that, where you can start seeing patterns and it pulls the answer forward faster.
That's cool. Yeah.
The idea there is just to make sure that, the staff that you have maybe can do 10, 20% more before you hire. You're not trying to say you're not going to hire, but how can you build that efficiency? And most times you can really not squeeze, that's a bad analogy, but put information in front of somebody so they can react faster. And the benefit, the customer situation gets solved faster, and the employee can do a little bit more work during the same amount of time. They're not working longer hours, after hours, stuff like that. And that's a big, with the way that hiring's been over the last couple of years and stuff, trying to build that quality of life for the staff is part of it. And the tools help. Yeah.
Well, I think like a lot of people, I feel like, get worried about if we pull in some tool, it's going to like replace someone, so there's like this natural hesitancy to like value the people part of the business, which I think is a great thing, but you can't be scared that this tool will replace someone, right? It might delay you having to hire someone, but I think there's an element of like enhancing, right? Like again, you told me this, so like, how do you enhance that person's role through tooling and skill set? And I think there's a balance, right, between people and process tools.
I find most people like to think they're working with a peer group that's smart and energetic and capable of doing a lot, and there's a lot of analogies. And we tend to use, I have some really great veterans who work for us. So military is always a good one. Do you want to, not discounting the grunt who's needed to go in, but do you want to work with the grunt or the special forces? And people tend to levitate towards the concept of, being really good at what they do. They're a go-to person. They like surrounding themselves with that. And so I always say is that I can potentially compensate you more. I can provide you more benefits if I don't add another person. So how do we grow to that? So people will bring up ideas, how they can become more efficient themselves. At some point, you need to hire somebody. You can't push 60 hours on people and do that, but people are willing to.
I got you a tool.
Exactly. I got you a tool. I got something that makes it a little bit easier for you, or again, to the standards side, the tool helps implement standards, which then you put standards in the solutions that you sell through and through across multiple customers. Again, it gets a little bit easier on everybody. So they all kind of play a part and parcel to a bigger equation.
How long do you typically evaluate a tool before you're like, hey, all right, we're going to fully adopt this and really go dive in deep? Like, do you have like a certain period of time, or
there's usually a marker,
like rocks or OKRs or something like that?
Yeah. So rocks, EOS, all that fun stuff. Yeah. So we'll have a good example. Our back office, we had one where we needed to kind of automate our billing for Microsoft services. For everyone who's in that world knows that that is a big mess. And if you are in a manual world, it's very, very painful.
Yeah.
And so that was a very rapid evaluate. Can it do what it said? It was, a week, but we knew the pain, and it was taking, 3-4 a week longer days than we needed to get invoicing out. And they were never really accurate.
Oh, that's crazy.
So customers were excited or really mad that things weren't right. And this was 2, 3, 4 years ago. And now it's rock solid accurate every single time in real time.
Nice.
Everyone saw, hey, this is beneficial. Customers are happy. invoicing's
So
happening.
you identified the problem of Microsoft licensing. You identified probably a couple of different ways to solve that. You chose one, kind of tested it in some period of time, and hopefully the good platforms and good software, like you can see it solving that pain quick.
Very much so.
And then so you can just, all right, we're going to do it.
Yep.
But okay, so it's all aligned to like
it is.
objectives.
Know your problem going in. That's probably the best thing. And that's really hard for people because like, it's like going on a car lot. You got, shiny new car, right? And I want that. And then you realize maybe I didn't need that after you purchase. For us, it's trying to identify what our business problems are, and then, putting a team together to go see if you can find a way to solve it. And it could be just internal process flow. It doesn't have to be a tool, just a better way to communicate internally. But some of the more complex ones typically need something to automate an action that might be happening after hours, or be able to move data from, third party to core system, right? And so take some time. We map out requirements, and those requirements will everything from a technical requirement to a business requirement, meaning what's our business case, what's it going to solve, evaluation of the underlying business we might partner with. So depending on how important that problem is to our business, sometimes, is that business a startup? If they are, who's funding them? Or if they're a big company.
Those are all conversations you had with us. I remember.
Exactly.
Like asking all that stuff. So
because the worst thing is to get into a situation that you really, really like and then it disappears.
Right.
And so that was also a trick that learned from my history in bigger companies, and bringing some of those tricks down to smaller companies just helps. So when we do scale up to that same size, we're not at that pain point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hear you. Well, like how many tools do you implement a year? Is there like a number?
I don't know if there's a number. I would probably say that we have 3 or 4
initiatives.
Maybe a month on that. We'll check that out because we'll have something to wrap it in, wrap it out.
Yeah. Is
there something? No, we found a better way to do it here. And it's just a continuous improvement cycle. What's our big core rocks for the quarters, moving that. But, that's those rocks have a lot of different moving parts underneath it. We started one this year that's a 6-month evaluation. And it's around improving our help desk and make sure information is more readily available. One of the complaints we got from our own team was they had to go to 3 or 4 different systems that weren't fully linked. And if we did link them, the data still wasn't easy to get to. So how do we improve that so they can, I got someone on the phone, I got a ticket in, I can quickly do that. In the same vein, while doing that project, we came in a way to provide a better user experience for our customers that was not on the scope, but came into scope and said, hey, we can do this. And that was evaluated in a month and put into practice within 2.
Yeah.
So
do you, like, I would imagine there's, in our own business, right? Like there's so much overlap in tools and platforms today. You got to consider like integrations, like what's that central, like one source of truth, and, how does data move, to your point, between systems and all that fun stuff. But sometimes there's like overlap, right? Where you're like, I could probably get rid of that one, pull it into this one.
Yeah.
That's just an ongoing process for y'all, right?
Yep. And that's where you look for, what platforms. When we talked to you guys and you guys started integrating some of our core systems, that was very beneficial. Yeah. And those ones that kind of get orphaned out by themselves after a while, you tend to look at them going, is there some way I can make another thing?
Logged in there in 6 months.
Yeah. or is someone else doing something close enough? Yeah. Or are they doing something incrementally better, but it's because they're not really tied into the core flow of the data systems that we have in other places.
That's cool.
But that makes that core system really hard to change.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what, that's like the whole platform play, right? And like, that's where private equity and all these people are like, hey, we have this, we buy all these companies and we try to put together this platform that does it all.
Yes.
And our play is like, we want to do one thing really, really well.
Yep.
And just integrate, right? Like we want to move data to and from systems that make sense and like make that simple and hopefully without introducing a whole lot of like additional complexity to the existing. Like that's the biggest question we get is, where does this fit into my current process, right? And so like it's hard for us to answer because, as you know, like there are some very complicated processes and there's literally no process in some of these companies. And so it's, you kind of got to partner with those organizations and try to figure that out because there's not one right answer.
Yeah, I could imagine. And luckily for us, we've incorporated the platform into our sales quote proposal process is like one and the same. Like our contract language, our sales proposal, our expectations, they all are presented as one. And so you start out, you qualify the leads, you get down to that point. But when it starts time to craft things together, they're not separate. They're all one thing, and they're presented as one kind of large
that's
document.
what the client, like the client doesn't care about all that stuff, right?
No,
they just want the one document. They want the right pricing on licensing, on the service.
Easy to understand. And that's that repeatability, right? We have one of the things my guys tell me is that sometimes I talk too fast, right? And then you got, this Bob over here who talks too slow. And when you find that one person who can say it the right way at the right speed, capture that and reuse that. Yeah. And that's what we found has been really, really helpful. And we took the knowledge of all of our team you put them out there by themselves, they'll find a way to make a customer feel like we got their back, take care of them and do that, which is great. But
they all have skills in different areas, right?
Like we introduced our back-end engineers into our sales process. Well, that brought a whole different voice. A guy who can turn every knob in a cloud scenario and make it do whatever you want. Trying to talk about that, well, you get War and Peace to say it'll work.
Right, yeah.
And so that synopsis view that we were able to do and build out and then replicate has been really helpful.
Do y'all have like any sort of process engineer or someone that like will Visio out or whatever tool?
Yes.
Like literally write out the process and the workflow and all that stuff?
Yeah, we have two. We have one. Luckily, we have two. So
is that pretty common? Like in our,
I don't know. I only say that from a standpoint as I got one guy was here on the team before I got there, and that's just his thing. He loves it. He's really good at it. He has like a book of Visios. Like I've never seen an 85 tab Visio, but he's got it, and it's just different processes and things.
Oh, really?
It's great. Yeah. That'd
be weirdly cool to look at.
It was. And then I started realizing like, oh, that's how it worked in our own process. He had it mapped out so well, and we use those as reference inside the business. And then another guy I worked with for a long time is just one of those really process-oriented engineers, and he just has to know the flow.
Yeah.
And his thing is if he can map it all out, he'll make sure everyone else does it, and it's just they love it.
Are these all the military guys that are on your team?
They are, both.
I knew it. Thing works for a reason.
Maybe that's my little piece of advice. Hire veterans because they can really, help out.
There's some value in that, right?
There really is. I mean, they're trained on the at least in the technology world, right?
Yeah.
They really understand process really well and can help fill in some gaps where,
That's what, like we had a client and he was like, I'm going to get our process engineer to come in and like figure out where scope stack fits in our process. And I was like, a process who? The process engineer. Maybe I should know all this stuff, but like my attention to detail runs out like in a few seconds. But it's really cool. I mean, I love the idea of it, right? And so we've actually tried to use that with their approval, like on how do you tell that story, and it was particularly like around ConnectWise and stuff like that. So, I think that'd be a really interesting. I mean, because you do need to understand like not just the flow, but like the data piece. Like, hey, if I put something here, will that flow through all the way down here, or do I need to sync it with that? Like, you need to understand where all that data lives and think about manageability. That's even a word. Managing all that. I think
it's a good word. I'll use it. Right, I probably have used it. Yeah.
You add ability to anything and it's
works great.
Legit. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that, in the managed service provider world, if they still call them MSPs, TSPs, whatever they want to call today, people who help people use technology, typically when they don't have IT staff, that process person, I think if you're small, you're lucky to have them on there. You don't know you have it until things start to get chaotic and they try to organize it. As you get bigger, it tends to map itself out and the business starts dictating those processes have to be cross-group.
Then it's just documenting.
Mm-hmm, and someone who's willing to do that. And then it becomes cultural that you have to, that's been a huge portion of people versus tools is how can I help put guardrails to create the culture and people make it easy for them to engage to get these pieces shared because we want people to grow in our business. Like we focus on trying to hire in and grow up.
Yeah.
At the same time, that means that we should have new people coming in the door, take their spot. And 6-month ramp up time for people to know our customers, know the technologies ins and outs, the setups, the standards.
Yeah. That's just hard.
Yeah. And it's hard to swallow the cost of doing that, but also you need that body to promote the person up.
Right.
So,
yeah, I mean, I think like, so even though you are the tool guy in your peer group, it's not just, and I know they know this, but like, it's not just, we're just going to go randomly put stuff on Brandon's credit card because he thinks it's cool. I'm sure that has happened,
yeah.
but like there should be like a thought process around all that, right? Yeah. Like how you're going to evaluate it. What's the timeline? How are you going to measure it? Like where would this fit? Where does data like, and if you don't have that process engineer, like it's just someone else's time to do all that stuff, but there has to be an evaluation.
100%.
All right. And it's the same thing on the people side too. Like you're evaluating, okay, how are they going to increase scale of our business, or how are they going to contribute to the culture? Like there's all this stuff that goes into that decision. So I just think it's really cool to kind of like break down a leader's thought process on what is very simple to just get new stuff, right? New shiny thing.
And there are some really cool ideas out there. People have found a problem and solved a really unique way, but does this help? And where does it help? I mean, and we will probably take anything in to look at it to see if it could help. Mm-hmm. So that is why we get called that. But at the same time, not much makes it through the filter because it's not just spending the money, it's the time put in to figure it out. And then is it incrementally matter?
Well, that's a really interesting, like, so you're already saying like, is this painful enough for me to even go through our process to figure out if it's worth fixing it, right? So you're like, what problem they're trying to solve. Okay, well, is it really that bad? Like there's just that initial, right? Like I'm sure a lot of people will bring tools and you're like, you could probably make that executive decision pretty quick.
Yep.
Or it's like, okay, let's evaluate this further. And so there's like that initial gate is the first big filter, I would imagine.
Kind of, yeah. And we actually kind of a fun group in my leadership group and the team is that we'll get in a room and someone will really start talking about a problem. And so we'll start focusing on how we can solve it. Mm-hmm. And then someone will have a light bulb moment to figure out we want to process that. And then, okay, well, can we automate through some of that evaluation criteria?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden onto the search we go, but it starts because
that's the fun part, right?
Yeah. But we knew we had a problem. I hate to say it and get the unsolicited, here's a great way I can solve your business problem. I don't have that problem. It's just a delete in the email. It's a missing of the thing. For us, I've had a couple of the people we've worked with, like, you're the easiest person we've ever worked with for our product. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, yeah, because I knew what I needed and I knew your thing did what I needed it to do. And they're like
you've done all the research before you talk to them.
And they obviously the sales team is pretty excited because it's a quick transaction, but like, how do we get more of you? I'm like, maybe have other people figure out what their problems are before you engage them.
Help them understand the problem. Exactly. I mean, for us, the big thing was, like engineers, honestly, like a lot of the people that work at MSPs, like they don't really want to talk to a salesperson. Just another salesperson is just noise and like whatever. But they like, if they actually have whatever pain it is and like they can easily go out and evaluate that solution without jumping through a bunch of hoops. Yeah. Like that was a big change we made this year actually, which is like just allow people to sign up, like kind of experience the value without having to talk to anyone. And hopefully we like that puts onus on us and on the product to make sure it's like understandable and easy to use. And so like, and it clearly shows that it could solve the problem. Right. And so like, I like that because the conversation at that point, when you do talk to someone is not, hey, like what you just said, like, let me tell you about this problem I think you have without knowing your business at all.
Exactly.
I can tell you how to solve it. It's, oh, okay. So like you had this problem. Interesting. Can I help you understand how we solve it better? Right. Like that's a different conversation.
Yeah. That's, didn't have that when we met. So
we didn't.
Luckily I knew I had a problem.
You got to talk to me a lot.
Yeah. There's worse things.
Yeah.
But,
well, you're on a podcast now. So that worked out. I know this is your dream come true. All right. So like kind of break this all down or boil it all down to like practical advice, people that if they're evaluating tools, process changes or people, like where do you start? What's the thing?
Think like we just said, identify what your problem is before you try to go find a solution. Mm-hmm. Like, and feel that pain point. Why is it a pain point? Really kind of sit down and map it out. Like it's taking too long to meet a customer expectation. I see a problem. The only way to solve it is to hire someone. I need to spend a lot of money on something. Know what your pain point is. And then how would you ideally solve it in your own mind before you go out and have someone tell you how to solve it because they can do it that way.
Right.
that's maybe tying together systems, however you want to see it. Ideally, it doesn't mean you're going to get there, but you know where to start.
Yeah.
Then go back out and try to do some research. If you got, connections and distributors, they seem to know a lot of people. There's different ways, the tech tribes and all kinds of fun stuff, peer groups, and ask to see who maybe.
Well, it's a small world, right? Like hopefully if someone's doing something right, you'll hear about it.
Yeah.
Right. And that word of mouth that's better than any conference you can go to. That's better than.
Well, as a tool guy, I probably have said scope stack a few times out there. So hopefully that helps. But yeah, I think, really focus on trying to understand your problem. That seems so simple, but I see a lot of people rushing out and just trying a bunch of different things. And all of a sudden like, oh, well, it can fix a problem I didn't know I had.
Yeah.
That usually means bad implementation, adoption, the business becomes harder.
Right.
So that'd be the easiest one to have. And then the other one would be, just always try to focus on the people that you have and see what you can do to extend their capabilities, but because they're wanting to extend their capabilities.
Yeah.
There's different roles, different people.
Talk to them.
That's a huge portion, the culture of engagement of your employees would be obviously a huge requirement to make that happen. But, thankfully in our group, we feel like we built a pretty strong culture of people who are open. I hopefully feel like anyone will say anything to me, even if it hurts my feelings or makes me laugh, But, most of the people I've found that when they're bought into their team and you tell them that you want to invest in them to make their job either better or easier, you usually get zero resistance.
Yeah. Like I keep seeing that you're at client meetings and however you're having to come back and you're working after hours for 8 hours because whatever, right? Like I don't want that for you. I don't want that for your family. Like no one wants that, And so I think that's awesome. Like just showing that you're investing in them and like their quality of life and again, making the business better at the end of the day. Like everyone wants to be on that special forces, in that special forces group. They don't want to just be a guy on the sideline.
And so I think the kind of the post-pandemic world, everybody's got the opportunity to maybe start some initiatives they had when you couldn't be around people.
Yeah.
Keep pushing on those. Don't let them go by the wayside. Then figure out what you can do to improve it now that we can be face to face again. And I haven't seen you in 2 years?
Right.
Yeah. So it's just good. It's good to be out and see people again.
Yeah, for sure.
But invest in simple things.
Yeah.
Know your problem and then just keep investing in your people.
It's funny, like almost all the practical advice we get on these podcasts, it's simple stuff. It's like the core blocking and tackling of our business. And people just need to be reminded of that, right? Like don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
Anyway. Well, cool. Again, thank you for coming out here. Like if anyone wants to talk to you about IMS or just pick your brain on any of this stuff, like what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Few ways. Obviously, we have our website. We got contact forms. I'm on LinkedIn like everybody else.
Yeah.
Happy to throw my email in if you put this up on the screen later or on what we put in there. But for us, we got a ton of folks. We're here in the Greenville market. We're in the Midwest market. We're in Charleston, and Midwest for us is Ohio, Kentucky. So we're kind of spread out everywhere.
Yeah.
We were ready to talk to anybody. But if you have any questions about, even from the operator standpoint, you're an MSP and want to chat, I love doing that too.
Cool. Are y'all currently hiring any positions?
At the moment, we are not. But what we've seen is that we've had the opportunity to hire a bunch of folks in the last few months. We actually just kind of got up to where we'd like to be.
Yeah.
We're heading out this year kind of staying. I think everybody's kind of wondering where the next few months with the economy's going. It's safe to say. So we're in that same boat. But we're looking forward to a good 2023. And if you're curious, we're a very focused cloud shop, Microsoft Azure, those type of things. So if those things intrigue you, we're always open.
Do it well too.
Yeah. So appreciate that.
Brandon, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it. Well, again, thank you all for joining us on the InScope podcast. If you have not listened to the podcast before, you can go out to scopestack.io/podcast. See all of them out there. You can subscribe. It's on all the great channels. And if you're interested in learning more about ScopeStack, the tool, the platform that we built to solve problems that we had, you can go out to scopestack.io/free, download the free plan, and really just start to get a feel for what we do. So again, thank you for listening, and we'll see you out there.